2 days later, I stand with a group of other students in front of the arbitrum. In the early morning mist lifts around us, shades of people and trees appearing. It seems out of nowhere. "Have you ever done this before?" the girl next to me asks. I don't know her at all, so she must be from another Baruch, a different second school. "Not really," I say, distracted by the fact that one of the figures appearing out of the mist has the shape of Kai Markingham. He moves quiet and strong, careful. When he sees me, he lifts his hand to wave. Apparently, he has signed up for hiking as a summer leisure activity too. After a second's pause, during which I smile and wave back at Kai, I add, "No, I've been walking, never hiking." "No one has done this before," says Loin, an annoying boy that I know from second school. "It hasn't been offered in years." "My grandfather knew how," I say. Loin won't shut up. "Knew? As in past tense? Is he dead?" Before I can answer, the officer in army green clears his throat and comes to stand in front of us. He is older, crisp, short, white hair, and olive skin. His color and bearing remind me of grandfather. "Welcome," the officer says in his voice that is clipped and sharp as his hair. He does not sound welcoming, and I realize that the similarities to my grandfather do not go far. I have to stop looking for grandfather. He won't materialize from the trees, no matter how much I wish it could happen. "I'm your instructor. You will address me as sir." Loin can't stop himself. "Do we get to go on the hill?" The officer fixes him with a gaze and Loin wilts. "No one," the officer says, "speaks without my permission. Is that understood?" We all nod. "We're not going to waste any time. Let's get started." He points behind him to one of the thick forested arbitrum hills. Not the hill, not the big one, but the one of the smaller foothills that are usually off limits unless you're atrium employee. These small hills are not that high, but my mother tells me that they are still a good climbing through underbrush and growth. "Get to the top," he says, turning on his heels. "I'll be waiting." Is he serious? No tips, no training before we start? The officer disappears into the undergrowth. Apparently he is serious. I feel until a small smile lifts across the corners of my mouth, and I shake my head to get rid of it. I am the first to follow the officer into the trees. They are thick summer green, and where I push my way through them, they smell like grandfather. Perhaps he is in the trees after all. And I think, if I ever dared to open that paper, this would be the place. I hear other people moving through the trees around me and behind me. The forest, even this type of circumvented forest, is a noisy place, especially with all us tromping through it. Bushes smack, sticks crunch, and someone swears nearby. Probably Loin. I move faster. I have to fight against some of the bush, but I am making good progress. My sorting mind wishes I could identify the bird calls around me and the name of the plants and flowers I see. My mother likely knows most of them, but I won't ever have that kind of specialized knowledge unless working in the atrium becomes my vacation. The climb gets harder and steeper, but not impossible. The little hill is still part of the atrium proper, so it isn't truly wild. My shoes become dirty, the soles covered in pine needles and leaves. I stop for a moment and look for a place to scrape off some of the mud so I can move faster. But here in the atrium, the fallen trees and branches are all removed immediately after they fall. I have to settle for scraping my feet one at a time along the bark beam side of a tree. My feet feel lighter when I start walking again, and I pick my speed up. I see the smooth round rock and looks like a polished egg, like the gift Bram gave to grandfather. I leave it there, small and brown in the grass. I move even faster, pushing the branches out of the way and ignoring the scratches on my hands. Even when a pine branch snaps back, I feel the sharp slap of the needles and spiny branch on my face, but I don't stop. I'm going to be the first one to the top of the hill. I am glad. There is a lightness to the trees ahead of me, and I know it because there is the sky and sun behind them instead of more forest. I am almost there. Look at me, grandfather, I think to myself, but of course he can't hear me. Look at me. I veer suddenly and duck into the branches and fight my way through until I can crouch alone in the middle of a thick patch of tangled leaves where I hope I will be well concealed. Dark brown plainclothes make good camouflage. My hands shake as I pull the paper. Was this what I planned all along when I tucked the compact inside my pocket of my plainclothes this morning? Did I know somehow that I'd find the right moment here in the woods? I don't know where else to read it. If I read it at home, someone might find me. Same is true for the air train and school and work. It's not quiet in the forest, crowds with vegetation and thick, muggy morning air, wet against my skin. Bugs hum, birds sing. My arms brush against the leaves, and a drop of dew falls onto the paper with the sound of ripe fruit dropping to the ground. What did grandfather give me? I hold the weight of this secret in my palm and then open it. It was right, and the words were old. I was right, the words are old. But even though I don't recognize the type, I recognize the format. Grandfather gave me poetry. Of course. My great-grandmother, the 100 poems. I know without having to check on the school port that this is a poem is not one of without having to check on the school ports that this poem is not one of them. She took a great risk hiding this paper, and my grandfather and grandmother took great risk keeping it. What poems could be worth losing everything for? The very first line stops me in my tracks and brings me tears to my eyes. And I don't know why, except for this one line. It speaks to me more than anything else has. Do not go gentle into that good night. I read on through the words I do not understand and ones that I do. I know why it spoke to grandfather. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should not burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of light. And I read on, I know why it speaks to me. Through wise men at their end know the dark is right. Because their words had forked into lighting they do not go gentle into that good night. The words have forked no lightning. Grandfather even told me this before he died. When I gave him the letter and I did truly write. Nothing I have written or done has made any difference in the world, and suddenly I know what it means to rage, to crave. I read the whole poem and eat it up, drink it up. Read about meteors and green bays and fierce tears, and even though I don't understand it, the language is too old. I understand enough. I understand why my grandfather loved this poem, because I loved it too. All of it. The rage and the lighting. The line under the title of the poem says Dylan Thomas, 1914 to 1953. There's another poem on the other side of the paper. It's called Crossing the Bar. It's written by someone who lived even further in the past than Dylan Thomas. Lord Alfred Tyson, 1809 to 1892. So long ago, I think. So long ago that they lived and died. And they, like grandfather, will never come back. Greedy, I read the second poem too. I read the words of both poems over again several times, until I hear a sharp, quick snap of sticks near me. Quickly I fold the paper up and put it away. I have lingered too long. I have to go. I have to make the time I've lost. I have to run. I don't hold back. This isn't the tracker. I can push myself hard through the branches and up the hill. The words of Thomas's poem are so wild and beautiful, and I keep repeating them silently to myself as I run. Over and over, I think, I do not go gentle. I do not go gentle. I do not go gentle. It isn't until I'm almost at the top of the hill that the realization hits me. There's a reason they did not keep this poem. This poem tells you to fight.